So this is just an empirical question. How do we minimize cheating? I can either put just like a mild warning that makes you feel guilty, like only you and your conscience know if you cheated on this test. You're like, conscience, who's that? Or I could threaten, you will fail this class if you cheat on this test. It's an empirical question. If anyone's done research on this, they're trying to develop companies that you go to that place to do your test. Like they get paid to proctor you.
Testing center.
Like a testing center, yeah. So a brief summary at this point. The closer and clearer the authority, the more remote the victim or the person is from the shock generator, the more obedience Milgram found. So we could say, if you want to enhance your authority, you make very clear that you're the authority figure. You stay near the people, right? So if I can't be there in person, what might I do now to enhance my authority to get you not to cheat? And some professors do this. Have y'all had any classes where they put a webcam and you have to take your test in front of a webcam?
I've heard of professors doing that, but yeah.
What do you think about that? Does that seem
that just seems. I wouldn't do that.
kind of what? It seems creepy.
I mean, you can be on. Yeah, show up.
What?
You can be on webcam.
But you could videotape it. Like I could videotape you. Like you have to log in. When you log in, it records.
That would be weird. Unless if everyone had to take it at the same time and the teacher was watching everyone, that would be different than it would just go to webcam when you individually took it on your own time.
And he's
that
like
would just be
staring
weird.
at him, like,
The odds of that,
We'll probably
you're
record
looking at
it.
everything, but it's
Yeah.
not like.
Okay, let's say there's 60 of you. It takes you 10 minutes. I could fast forward through a video, and it only take me 10 seconds to watch all of y'all take the entire test. And if I ever saw y'all pick up a book,
Unless you do it constantly, then.
yeah, unless you got the book there in front of you.
Kind of set up behind the webcam.
But then I would see you go behind the
We look off in the distance.
Yeah. Yeah, I know it's sort of hard. It's sort of like, but that's.
Look at the webcam.
But with closer the authority, you can imagine a video being videotaped, being videoed. The more remote the victim, that is, if I have to fly a predator drone and kill someone on the other side of the globe, more likely to get obedience. Also, the further I am from actually having to do the action, the greater obedience I can expect. Well, Milgram then said, well, maybe the problem was that the study took place on Yale University campus. Why might that be an issue?
People know that something's being studied.
That something's being studied. So when he said, who's going to take responsibility for this? The guy said, I will. You're the guy. What's your name again?
Christine.
Christine. So Christine's in the experiment, and the guy says, I will take responsibility. Tell me what's going on in your head now.
You see that, like, okay, well, he's part of Yale University, so if Yale is going to take on responsibility for this study, then, like, it's the kind of prestigious university, so.
Yale's prestigious university. They must know what's going on. Surely Yale is not going to allow this guy to die, right? So, I am finishing a book. Anyone read The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks? It's an awesome book, and part of the book is on how there were very few safeguards in these kinds of tests earlier in the century, especially with taking biological material. Anyway, so they moved it. They decided to move the experiment from Yale to a strip mall, basically. So imagine we're going to move the research from UAB, and we're going to put it next to, was it Cloud 9? 5 Points. So right between Cloud 9 and the tattoo place. So you know where we're at. You're like, show me a picture of that. Okay, there we go. So imagine I just move it to a strip mall. And you walk into my office and it looks like, well, this. What do you think is going to happen to obedience? Well, okay. You might predict less, but I want a little more precise. So you think obedience is going to drop to 0? Remember, you're going into a strip mall, right? So picture Cloud 9 and the tattoo place and Five Points, right? If you can do this, are they right next to each other? Or is there
There's like a hot dog place in the middle.
yeah, listen, so it's at the hot dog place in the middle. You walk into the hot dog place and it says Research Associates of Birmingham and hot dogs. Right, and they describe the experiment. So is obedience going to drop to 0?
Pretty close to 0.
So you predict pretty close to 0. Any other bets?
I would think it would drop down, but not a whole lot.
So we're at 60% normally at Yale. So give me an idea of how it's going to drop.
50, not very much at all.
So it's going to drop. Do you think it's going to drop 10%? So we can do every single number. Anyone think it's going to stay the same? Guy in gray lab coat. You don't predict it's going to increase? It's hot dogs too. Well, here's what you actually found. It dropped, and it dropped to about 50. So you're right.
Boom.
Boom. That's right. Oh, I've also posted these notes online.
No, I don't do picture stuff.
You don't do picture stuff?
Extra.
Oh, I don't do it. That's awesome. Online, that's great. Yeah, but it is about 50%. This is kind of disturbing that it didn't drop that much, and they're up basically in a strip mall, and some person in a gray lab coat is telling them to shock an old man, and they're like, "How much do I get?"
So is it saying that it doesn't matter, like, so authority is still authority whether we actually see them as being more prestigious or not?
Well, you could still go the whole chain of events, like somebody's obviously overseeing this, blah blah blah. But think about if you're at say McDonald's or Burger King or any restaurant, and the policy is throw away food that expired that day, and your boss says, "Well, keep that for one more day." Well, your boss just told you to do something that violates.
My dad actually got fired the first day of his job for doing something sort of like that. His boss, they dropped a thing of pizza sauce and it had glass in it, and the boss told him to mop it up and use it again on the pizza, and my dad said no, and he got fired.
Good for him. Well, not good for me. Wow. Just use it. Who cares?
Yeah, it's got broken glass in it, but put that on pizza.
Glass.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm glad you know. It's like I'm not gonna do that. So to go back to the original question, did the Germans operating the ovens have to hate the Jews? I mean, it may have helped, but they didn't have to. What about the pilots of the Enola Gay? You don't know what the Enola Gay is. This makes me sad. Anyone know what the Enola Gay is?
It's one of the planes that dropped the bombs, right?
What?
One of the planes that dropped the atom bomb?
It was the first plane that dropped the first atomic bomb. That's gonna be one of your quiz questions. What is the Enola? Yes, you should know that. It's one of your questions on the quiz. What is the Enola Gay? I'm going to tell you. You need to know what the Enola Gay. It's one of those names that you don't have to know that it was named for this guy's wife, but you do have to know the name of this plane.
It's named for somebody's wife.
It's named for some guy's wife.
Oh, that's terrible.
No, it was very common at that time for pilots to name their planes after the women in their life.
Because they're good answers.
Do they have to hate the Japanese to drop the first atomic bomb? What is the total justification you could use? You're the pilot of the Enola Gay. You're told to drop this bomb.
Somebody else
Probably
knows.
thinking about Pearl Harbor.
What?
They're probably thinking about Pearl Harbor.
So they could have been thinking about Pearl Harbor, so that certainly is a confound, but do they have to be thinking about Pearl Harbor?
They were ordered to.
Yeah, some guy, but if you sort of run back, it's like some guy wearing a jacket with some metal on the jacket that it symbolizes that he's up the chain of command, has told me to go on this mission. If you're interested in a really, really good recreation of this, there's a series called One Day in History. It's we'll put the link of this for this name for y'all. But it's a really great. They did a really great recreation of the first atomic bomb blast. I think it's called This Day in History. You can Netflix it, right? But do they have to hate the Japanese? No.
I recall reading that the pilot was actually told that they weren't sure that the authority was going to protect them. When they were being briefed on it, they were told, "We're not entirely sure that this is legal. That bad things won't happen to you because you agreed to do this."
Wow. I hadn't heard that. That's amazing. I'm not entirely sure it's legal to kill an entire population. I also heard that they were not sure it would work. And they actually each had a vial of cyanide they carried with them, so in case they were captured, they were supposed to commit suicide.
I'd be worried I didn't make it out alive.
What?
I'd be worried if I dropped it and was stuck in it.
Very legitimate, very legitimate. So we can ask though other questions. Did the soldiers did they have to hate the Iraqis to torture them? What could you do? Or what could you say?
Couldn't you make a claim that through like torturing and stuff that hate comes about?
I would argue very much that's true. I think torture is a very bad policy all the way around. But the issue is, if I'm ordered to torture, do I have to hate these men to do this?
Right. No.
So the bigger issue is,
So that like initially you don't hate, you commit the act over and over, you start hating, and then you come to this.
I think you start dehumanizing. That you very much start treating them as, thinking of them not as people. I think that's a far bigger concern.
Wasn't that part of the training in Vietnam, that they would refer to like the Vietnamese as dogs? So you
Yeah,
wouldn't
that's
have
very
fun with
common in war, to dehumanize your enemy, because you have to think of them as a person. So that's worse. All right, we'll pick back up on Friday. Hope you'll have a wonderful day. Sorry to end on a depressing